And welcome to the next portion of this Chapter 3 lecture. The technical difficulties continue, but hopefully you've made it this far. Media and social analysis. The media plays a large role in America, a large role in 21st century societies of all sorts. And media studies open up paths of investigation, including textual analysis, audience studies. Remember, text is that video that you are watching. That is a text. We also have the ability to study our audience while they're watching that text. How we can study how people create media and the biases involved in creation, why they make certain choices to do or not to do something in the creation of a story, whether it's print or radio or television or podcast or what have you, how their biases come into media creation. How media reflect the culture in which they exist. You're looking behind me. I obviously exist in a culture filled with books, and that is my local culture. There's not a place in my house I think I could set up you wouldn't see books behind me. How individuals and groups use the media to change culture. Remember, one of the options for sociology historically has been to make the world a better place, to use sociological analysis to try to get people to change, to be more the way Dr. So-and-so wanted them to be, Dr. Parker wanted them to be. And the media is often used for those same ends, to try to change culture. Now, media effects can be placed into 4 categories according to their duration and their intention. They may be short-term or deliberate, short-term and deliberate, excuse me. In other words, somebody does something in the media on purpose to have a short-term effect on our culture. It could be a long-term effect that is deliberate. It could be an unintentional short-term effect, or it could be an unintentional long-term effect. I have a link for you to a story out of Israel from a few years ago. And let me open that up. And I may be, there we go. And here we are, this story regarding the situation between Israel and Gaza in 2014. And this is a reporter giving some insight as to how her supervisors guided, provided boundaries and definitions for her reporting of the story that definitely provided an ideological bias to how the story was created and presented and received once it was transmitted. This story presents short-term and deliberate, long-term and deliberate, short-term unintentional, and long-term unintentional effects by the media on the larger society. Let me bring this back up to full screen for you. Note the following paragraphs in the story as you read it. The volume of press coverage, news organizations. So the press itself is lending credibility to the volume of coverage on a certain event, stating it's more important because of that volume of press coverage. It's a very circular argument. The press citing itself as a reason something is important is shaping social reaction, societal reaction in the short term. News organizations presented as authoritative. The fact that Hamas intimidation is largely beside the point. This is a statement of bias. It's a statement of preference of what variables should be considered. So rather than a news story, we've now turned into an editorial. This is from the author, the reporter herself. This decision has taught me a lesson. Please read what lesson she was taught, and then read the entire section, Who Cares if the World Gets the Israel Story Wrong? Basically, she's saying, the facts that I wanted to report, I was not allowed to report by my superiors from the Associated Press because they had certain cultural, political, moral biases that they wanted to be feeding to the globe. And so the story became AP's bent, not the actual facts on the ground in the situation between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. The media has tremendous power to do and to shape people's understanding, people's reactions, people's values, and their ideology. Media effects can be observed in what is and what is not reported or available. I did this Google search literally today before I started recording the lectures. Look at the word Nazi, 148 million hits. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of seeing this word on Facebook. What are the unintended or intended messages in the use of this word? The Syrian civil war, however, has a much more immediate impact on more people and the globe, I think, than our conjecture about what is and is not Nazi. Yet it only has little over a third of the number of hits than the word Nazi. Congo war crimes, a tragic situation in the Congo, a tragedy that's been going on for decades, only 6.2 million hits. Discussions of white supremacists, thank God, is lower than the Syrian civil war or Congo war crimes, but it's still pretty high, 3.72 million hits. But look, real people with faces and names, not unlike those in Syria or those in Congo, but specifically persecution of Egyptian Christians, only 870,000 hits. And the Puerto Rico power outage, fellow Americans who are dealing with a difficult situation a year after they suffered the storm that caused the power outages in the first place, are still trying to rebuild, only 444K hits. Puerto Rico power outage compared to the word Nazi. What are people talking about? Is the media driving this conversation and suppressing this conversation? Or are the people driving the media who are driving the conversations? I'm asking the question. And finally, persecution of Nigerian Christians comes in last at 257,000 hits. Oh, I forgot. See, even I get carried away with my denigration of the media that I forget something very important. Genocide of the Yazidis, very small minority religious group, only 203,000 hits. And there are very few of them left. We care much more about this and this than we do these people. Who's driving it, the media or us? What are the implications for who's driving it? Other items I looked up: Ferguson, American urban murder, handguns, Charlottesville, American interethnic crime. The truth is, whites kill more whites than anybody else, and blacks kill more blacks than anybody else. Hispanics kill more Hispanics than anybody else. But we don't talk about interethnic crime as much as we talk about Ferguson or Charlottesville. By a factor of 5. What are the intended or unintended effects of these imbalances? I leave it to you. So intentionally or unintentionally, subtly, overtly, the media can create or reinforce ethnic, racial, gender, religious, and other stereotypes. So here's where I want to get to the theory. We've been talking about the media. The media use text. The media use symbols. The media use their biases and their control of the text, whether that's print or audio or video, to present a message that the editorial board, the producer, wants to present. Under which of the 3 theories? I've got 3 to choose from. Functionalism, conflict theory, symbolic interactionism. Which of our 3 theories does this concept of media caused societal reactions, societal behavior, societal stereotypes does the concept fall under? I'm not going to give you the answer. You need to think about it. Looking at the political economy of the media, media ownership in the United States is in the hands of just a few companies, and they affect the information we all get. Look at this. I'm only going to give you the top 4. And the list goes on. Comcast, NBC Corp. These are the major brands, but they have a stake in Slack. I use that every day. Hulu, very popular. All of these web sources. Then Walt Disney, second. ABC. So NBC's up here. ABC is here. The Disney Channel. Tons of kids watching these programs. They also have a stake in Hulu. Look, so does Comcast. What does this mean? That 2 competing media enterprises both have a stake in the same web media outlet. Let's take a look at 2 others. 21st Century Fox. Oh, look, they also have a stake in Hulu and in Roku. And they are FX and Blue Sky Studios, National Geographic, Time Warner, CNN, HBO. Also, look, Hulu, the CW, NCAA.com, coming from Time Warner, which runs CNN and HBO. What potential biases, predispositions, cultural preferences could be coming through these channels directly to you? And do you know it when it happens? And are you influenced? The answer is no, you often don't know because you're not thinking about it. It happens in the background, in the back of your consciousness. And yes, you are influenced. I'm really sorry to tell you, unless you don't watch it, you are going to be influenced. So the media, especially advertisements, play a large role in the maintenance of consumerism. And what does this say about our society? For more on that, I would like you to watch Allison Pugh's research on parental spending on their children. That video is on Blackboard. Please do watch it. There will be a test on a future quiz or midterm. And be sure you're ready for that. Are we merely consumerist cultural dupes? Are we born with brands ready to go, willing to follow the media indicators wherever they lead us, and consume things with which Facebook, Google, Cox want us to consume? That's my question for you today. It's not a very uplifting lecture, I know, but they're important questions to ask. And I hope you're asking yourself. And go to the discussion board, put some questions out there. Let's get some discussions going. Unanswered questions, nurture or nature? This is a question that's been going on for decades and at least a couple of centuries. The internet promoting a global culture? Well, yes and no. Here we have a picture of a woman, presumably Muslim, as she has a full headscarf on. And the credit is given to Muhammad al-Sheikh. So it's in the Middle East. But she's using a cell phone to take a picture. Is the cell phone a cultural artifact? Yes, it is. But where is it coming from? Is it from the US? Is it from Asia? Is there something that is impinging her culture? Yes, but can we tell where it's coming from? All these questions that are unanswerable, but we need to ask them to get us thinking. Does globalization weaken or strengthen local cultures? Is nationalism something that can be influenced for good or for bad or at all? Nationalism has been around longer than has been globalization. Is it changed at all by globalization? How easy do cultures change? Understand what cultural lag is, that set of beliefs and symbols expressing identification. Oh, that's not quite right. I apologize. Cultural lag. And here is the correction. Cultural lag. Changes in cultural values and norms take time to catch up with technological developments. So, This Islamic woman somewhere in the Middle East is using a cell phone to take a picture. So this is an artifact of a culture not her own, which is changing potentially her own culture. But it's going to take some time to have a lasting, noticeable impact. It may have an immediate impact, but to be a societal-wide impact is going to take time. And we may not realize it until it is so ingrained that it is even more, it's as difficult to change as it was to make its way into the culture in the first place. Concept questions I leave to you. Please do go through them, ask them of yourselves. Again, use the discussion board. And if you have any questions, use the discussion board, send me an email. Stay tuned for part 3, critical response assignments. Thanks. Bye-bye.